Leona wanted you to say hello to the camera, by the way. She felt that you were the most important star of the show. As you can see, Leona, I promise you, he is being well taken care of.
Darling, you fell in love with the famous man. See my pictures posted everywhere across the land. And if you run with me, you got to understand that you're holding on to a dangerous hand. If I want it.
Welcome to the Italian Hedges. We promised you a few times now that we would give you some costs, a bit of a rundown on what it's cost us so far, how things are working with utilities and how much that's costing us. And so we thought time was right that we would run through. Now we've got a little bit more stability. So we're into January now, we've got a bit more time to sit down and kind of go, okay, the dust is partially settled, how much is it cost? Where are we? So let me run you through those figures now. So the first major cost that we came across that you'll know from earlier videos on the channel was the house has no decent drainage. It's an old farmhouse, it's not connected to any mains drainage, the mains drainage doesn't come this far. And we found that out when we were already most of the way through the purchasing of the property. Our builder phoned me up, as you know from previous video, you don't have any decent drainage. We need to install a septic tank. And obviously we needed to make sure that that was compliant, that it was suitable size for the size of the house, and we needed costs associated with that. So Joe has come in with Luigi and he has fitted a, to my knowledge, Joe will probably correct me, but 1,000 litre septic tank. Next to that, he's fitted a grease interceptor. Now that's not always required, apparently, but there was some argy-bargy between the geometra, the local supplier, so Sassy, the local water company, and the local council as to what the minimum requirements were, and they insisted on having a grease interceptor. Can't argue, just get on with it. He ordered a small one to sit alongside the septic tank. When he went to collect it, there was a, meh, it's not in stock. This is the only one we've got. And so we have a 1,000 litre septic tank sat next to a 1,000 litre grease interceptor, the only advantage of which is it probably will never need emptying because it's so large. Those run down to a soakaway that is actually halfway down the land. And quite luckily for us, really, the septic tank and the grease interceptor at the back of the house, they were going to run it down to what was looked like an old manhole. When they started pulling the old manhole to parts, it looks like there's some evidence of a well there. But what there is concrete pipes, so they made sure they weren't collapsed. They ran the new tubing through the concrete pipes and they were able to run them halfway down the land. So the soakaway is now miles away. Soakaway is miles away. And at the same time, they installed a new manhole to manage the waste output from the varying different rooms in the house. So when you think about installing a septic tank, you have to think about how you're getting things to there. So there's a new manhole with a new T-junction and the T-junction, or a Y-junction, and the Y-junction manages waste coming from the main bathroom, waste coming from the kitchen, and it will eventually manage waste coming from a mezzanine bathroom as well. But that's a horror room for later. So the process took about 3 to 4 days, the install process. There's a lot of excavation, there was a lot of mess. It was done in December, which is an awful time to do it, and I felt really sorry for them, but they were wonderful. They pulled out all the stops to make sure that this was up and running for us. And that cost us nigh on 6,000 euros, which for what it's given us and the size of it, it won't need to be cleared out very often. So we save money in that way. The soakaway being halfway down the land means if there is any residual smell, it's far enough away from the house that you probably wouldn't notice. But yeah, it's not a cheap undertaking, but it is a foolproof solution to make sure that we are actively managing the waste output from this property. So that's the first one. The thing is, we needed to do it as part of a 3-pronged strike, for want of a better description. So at the same time as having the septic tank, grease interceptor and soakaway fitted, we also needed a new boiler. The old boiler for the property didn't meet energy requirements and was removed. So there was no boiler, which we knew at the time we purchased. Now, the boiler installation took about, again, 3 to 4 days. There was a leak in one of the pipes under the stairs, and it wasn't a slow leak. When we turned the water on, it was a considerable leak, so we made sure that we had that dealt with immediately. Knowing full well what we wanted to do in the short term with the house, we needed 2 radiators moving, so it made sense that Sergio, the plumber, moved the 2 radiators because he was changing all the valves. He flushed the system through, he ran it all up to temperature and tested it. And like I say, installed a new boiler, and he also installed a new thermostat. So the old thermostat, years out of date. It's not a fandangoed digital one, it's quite a simple one that came with the boiler, and at some point in the future we will replace it. But for now, it allows us to manage effectively two time zones. So it's day and night, but it's basically high and low. And it works for us, we're managing it quite well. That had to be done at the same time as the septic tank, or it made sense to do it at the same time as the septic tank, and that's cost us about €5,000. Now, let me explain it. There are tax breaks for some works that improve the energy efficiency of the property. So there is potentially a tax break that we will get a commercialist to look into that might allow us a discount back on our tax bill for having that work done. It depends on what tax regime you fall under. I'm in no way an Italian tax expert, I wouldn't even consider myself a British tax expert, but we will employ the services of a commercialista and see if that's an option for us. So, the third prong, the third strike that we needed to get done, bear in mind this was all before Christmas, was to have the LPG gas tank installed, because we had an LPG boiler installed, but you can't run it without the LPG. Now, we took out a new contract with a local company, Energas, I believe they're called, and the bombolers, the gas tanks they're now installing, they calculate it based on the volumetric size of the house, thereabouts, so kind of how many bedrooms. They sink it into the garden, so they bury it in the ground, and then the connection is to the boiler. So you can see how the 3 kind of water systems or heating systems, they were kind of all done at the same time, and they all needed to coincide with each other. So the bombola was installed, it's a 1,000-litre bombola. It turned up and was installed in the space of about 2 hours, turns up with its concrete pad ready to go. They only fill it to 800 litres, so we're told, and I presume that's contraction expansion and so on. And they will fit it free of charge because we took out a contract with them for 2 years for them to supply LPG to us. I might be a cent or so out, but it's about 83 cents per litre to be filled. So it cost us 600 odd, 700 odd euros. There is tax to pay with that, so it's the cost plus VAT. They were a bit shocked when we told them to fill her up, but we had no concept of what we were going to use, and I'd rather we prepared off against the future. So we had it filled up. There came a tricky point where all of this work had been done, and the LPG guys said they couldn't make it until after Christmas, which our builders stepped in and said, no, we told you about this weeks ago and you've already fitted the bombola, so come and fill it or take the bombola away, one or the other. And they kind of politely strong-armed them into making sure they turned up. And a guy with a van turned up with a tank on the back and filled it in the space of about 15 minutes. Wonderful. So we had heating for Christmas, it was lovely. So to recap, the 3-pronged approach that we had was a full drainage system to the house, which was about 6,000, a full heating system with some tweaks, some repairs, some moves, and that was about 5,000 euros. I said pounds, didn't I, on the septic tank, sorry. And the bombola installation, which whilst the installation was free, the cost to fill it was about 600-700 euros. There was then some argy-bargy between the plumber and the bombola people as to who was responsible for doing the connection between the two. It got resolved in the end, largely by them kind of shouting at each other or having a polite conversation, as I suspect it wouldn't have been. But that eventually got resolved, and by the 23rd of December, we had wonderful heating flooding its way through this house and toilets that actually worked, which was great. So there are some other costs that we've come across that we wanted to just run through with you, and some of these are absolutely suitable for everybody that's looking at buying or renting a place here, and some of them perhaps not. As the first of which is because we didn't have residency sorted when we arrived, we used hire cars extensively. So in order to transfer over here, Shane hired a car, drove it back to the UK, came back with us, me and the cat, and you've seen that in an earlier video. We've then subsequently had to continue with hire cars because we don't have residency here, and without residency you cannot buy a vehicle. You can import your own and you can pay, from what I've been told, quite expensive amounts of money to have it registered here. We decided not to do that, so we're reliant upon hire cars for the duration, and hire cars here are not that expensive unless it's peak season, and then it triples. So for example, we could have a car for 3 weeks, a reasonable size somewhere, you know, a small to mid-sized vehicle, and it will cost us maybe €100 a week. Over the Christmas 2 weeks, that was 3 times as expensive for a smaller vehicle. So we just had to suck it up and get on with it because we didn't have an alternative. But just bear that in mind if you're coming out at a peak season. And I don't know what qualifies as peak season for car hire, but Christmas and New Year clearly was. Then you need to think about that. And you can't buy a vehicle here until you've got residency. So it was a race against time to try and get that sorted as well. So that's that one. Okay. Other costs that we had as a result of the choices that we made. So on top of the car hire cost, because we moved here just before the house purchase in order to sign all the documents, we had to stay locally and we had the cat to think about, so we needed to hire somewhere. So we had Airbnb costs while that was going on. Now that worked great for us because the cat was able to settle into a property without us kind of constantly throwing him around and chucking him in the back of a car. But we needed a reasonably sized property in order for him to kind of settle in, and I didn't want to throw him into a flat that we had to carry him into and so on and so forth. So we had Airbnb costs associated with that. The house that we hired locally for a week before we moved here was about €500-600 for the week. So consider that as an option. Along with hire cars, obviously you've got fuel. We're moving around quite a lot. We're in the countryside. Not everything's immediately on your doorstep. If you're living in a large town, or you've decided to buy somewhere where there's a lot of foot traffic and you can get everything locally, then it's not a problem. But for us, and for what we wanted to achieve, getting around, there's consideration of cost there. Next, utilities. It's a question that confused me. I've looked at videos of other people saying, oh, how much did it cost for this, that, everything else? But it's really different depending on the size of the property and the area in which you live. You'll see from an earlier video that we were dead excited when we managed to turn the electrics on. We came out close to Black Friday, so I signed up to a Black Friday deal online with NL, the electricity and gas company. We only signed up for electricity because, as I've explained, we've got an LPG tank to supply our gas, so we only needed one single supply from them. So we've got luce, so we've got lighting, what they call lighting, but lighting and electricity. And we, in fact, I've written notes on the back of the NL bill. We arrived on the 28th of November, and for the month or so until the heating went live, we were very, very cold. So to overcome that, for the first few days, we had space heaters and so on, trying to heat rooms as we went. The building was unoccupied for years and the cold had seeped into the walls. It was quite tough to keep it warm. A couple of days later, after moving in, we discovered we knew we had two air conditioning units, but we discovered that those air conditioning units were capable of heat as well as cold. Brilliant. expensive, or so we thought. So we ran those, one in the lounge, kitchen, diner area, and one in the master bedroom, but we wouldn't run them at the same time because old houses, old electricity, we didn't want to overload the system. So one would go off, and the other one would go on, and kind of vice versa. And we expected them to be really, really expensive because they are big draw systems. I think Shane said they were 1.6 kilowatt draw per hour. So we expected them to be really expensive. On top of that, we had been using space heaters and fan heaters. And on top of that, we also bought a biofuel heater. So we rushed off to Brico and we bought this lovely biofuel heater and 20 litres, 10 litres? For anybody that can work out my hand movements, kind of this size, and of biofuel. Now that heater uses 1.2, I think, litres and will run for about 4 hours and actually gives off a nice warmth. It's not hot, but it gives off a really nice warmth. The biofuel heater set us back something like 170 euros, and it's 20 euros for the biofuel at that size. I think that's 10 litres. So we had space heaters, fan heaters, we bought a biofuel heater, we bought the biofuel. We expected the bill to be extraordinary. We were taking bets on what it was cost. But actually, the bill's only 101 euros and 52 cents, and that is for the month. Which is quite surprising considering we were running everything off it. To make it even more interesting, the NL, the electricity supplier, charges you for television license. Now I thought we would be able to opt out of that because I don't speak enough Italian to watch Italian television, certainly not yet. But it turns out it would appear that it's not possible. So actually, of the 100 euros that the bill was, only 74 euros of that was the electricity supply. 27 euros of that was the first instalment on the television license for the year. When in Rome, it is what it is. So I guess I'm watching Italian television from now on. But we're expecting that to drop from this month because now we've got the LPG tank running heating. We haven't touched the air conditioning machines. That will no doubt cut that cost considerably. And as you also know from other videos, we've got a solar system here, and that should again allow us, the minute the sunshine comes out, should allow us again to take stuff away from the burden of an electricity bill. But it was expensive, but not anywhere near as expensive as we thought it would be. So that's electricity. Right, next one. Sassy. So where we are in Abruzzo, the local water company is referred to as Sassy. Oh no, here we go. You coming over, are you? Come on then. Do you want me to carry you? Oh shit. Right, you go there. Stay and behave. Say hello to people. There we are, good boy. So Sassy is the local Abruzzan water company. To set up a new account with Sassy, we had to go and visit them in their office. That is a new concept to me because everything is done at arm's length in the United Kingdom, but you go and sit in an office, you take a ticket, you wait in line, and then if you're very lucky, a nice man who understands way better English than you do Italian at the minute, helps you through the process, sets up a new account, and then he can give you some advice. So because this is our primary property, he said, send this once you get your documents from the purchase of the house, send them here and you get a residence discount. So if it's not your residency here, if it's a holiday home, be prepared to pay more. And I think the tax is, I think it's 2% for residents and it's 9% for non-residents, something like that. Thank you. Yeah. That's really lovely of you, thank you. So we set it up, the water came on, but it took a couple of days. We needed to then wait for a man to come out and fit a water meter. So all the water pipes are here, but he fitted the water meter. At that point, he was then able to tell us that the water was on and what kind of bar pressure we're getting. And the bar pressure here is really good, so love that. We're awaiting a bill. I think the bill is paid quarterly, but we did get a small charge. I think it was 80 something euros to set up the new service, and that covered the cost of the new account and also the man coming to fit the meter. So we've paid for that, we've set that up. A couple of days later he came. They're really not very slow here, they're really on the ball quite quick. So Sassy got the water up and running, got discount for first home ownership, and I'm awaiting a bill from them to let you know how much we're using. But bear in mind, by having a septic tank, we're not using wastewater. We're disposing of that ourselves. So we're only using a water supply through the pipes. We're not using mains drainage. So I'm expecting that to be a bit cheaper, and I'll report in when I know what that's going to be. Next one. So the next one on our list is Tari, which is the charge from the local commune, the local council, for bins and waste provision. So we went, again, much like Sassy, you can't arrange it online. He loves getting in the way, doesn't he? Much like Sassy, you can't arrange it online. You have to go in and see the commune and show them your documentation and ask for bins. They asked us what bins we would like, and we set up, we filled out this form. Shane said, let's get those bins, which are similar size to the ones we had in the UK. So 240 litre bins, they're kind of with the big flap. You get 5 bins here. Also, we thought, technically you get 5 bins, and we'll do a rundown of all the bins and how we recycle and what area we're in and how that differs from city centre living. We were given a bill to pay, and that was the bill from when we set it up, which was kind of the beginning of December to the end of the month. I think it was something around about €20, and that saw us through for that month. So we were awaiting a bill from the commune for the new year. That's not arrived yet. I need to chase that up and find out why that's not arrived. But so there's Tari, so there's waste, we've got electricity, we've got the LPG tank, and we've got Sassy, the water company. And those are the bills that we have here, the charges that we have incoming here. Interestingly, as an aside, there are ways to pay for these bills by direct debit, or they'll send you the bill and then they'll just expect you to settle it. And you can go to Posta Italiana, you can go into their offices and pay it, or they do an app called Pago Pay, which I think means pay. I don't know. And you can register with Pago Pay. You can scan your bill. There is a QR code that you can scan, and you can pay the bill, the bolletta, with Pago Pay, and they'll manage it all for you, and they'll notify them that you have settled that bill. So that's a really good option. There's quite a few options here actually for payment, which is really nice. So keep that in mind. There are apps coming online all the time, and whilst I would say Italy in general, and certainly the area we're in, is digitally regressive compared to what we're used to, it's really lovely to see that somebody has to manually turn that switch on, make that work for you, raise that bill for you, solve that problem for you. It's forcing us to be out and about in public with people that are speaking rapid, fluent Italian at us, and it's our problem and our job to start learning that language, to start understanding what they're saying, to start asking for help in Italian when we need it. Everybody's brilliant here, but the onus is on us to start figuring that out, which we are doing at speed. Okay, finally, in order for us to have all the work that we've done on the house and the future work we want to have done on the house, we need the services of a geometra. So they're halfway between a surveyor and an architect, I would argue. Our surveyor, our geometra, another Luigi, he has submitted plans to the council for us to have a load of work done. Now, originally the plan was to submit it all under one high-level application. So in the United Kingdom, there are 2-level applications. So you can do some works under a building notice, and that could be replacing windows. In fact, that could be small extensions now, under 10 square meters or something. But the larger works, building large extensions and so on, needs to be done under full planning. From what I can tell, it's really very similar here. Minor works, major works. The plan originally was to put everything under a major works application, but the commune, from what I understand, the commune had a problem with that. So we we've now got to the point where we have 3 separate applications. The first application covers the replacement of the boiler, because it's still quite major works really. The second application covers the new land drainage, so our septic tank, and they insisted they had to be done under separate applications. I don't know why, I don't know enough about it. It was just dealt with on our behalf. And the third application covers all of the but all of the changes that we explained that we wanted to take place over the next kind of, ideally 2 to 3 years. So there is a chiller, I believe it's called a chiller, C-I-L-A application that has gone in, and that covers repairs, renovations, changes to the property, and has a named builder. So our builder, he is named against that as the person that will carry that out. And then once those works are done, our geometra will let the council know through his official channels with new drawings to explain, well, there was a window there, but now that's a door. And this outbuilding has been removed, and this upgrade has been done to here, and here's the changing floor plan. And he will regularise within the land registry and to the local local municipality exactly what changes have gone on here. Now that lasts for 3 years. For a small fee, it can then be extended. So if we don't get everything done within the first 3 years, we will ask Luigi to make sure that that is renewed stroke extended with the council, and that will give us buy us a bit more time to get that done. So we are paying Luigi. Now we haven't paid him yet. We've paid him certain amounts for the work for the bits he's done, but from what I gather, it's every time he does more, we will receive a bill for him for more. And we've been told to estimate that at about €2,500. I've seen geometra costs 3 times that from some places, but I can't speak to different locales. All I can speak to is what that's costing us here and what it's costing us for the works we want to have done. Perhaps if you want to have extensions and swimming pools and so on and so forth, that might be more expensive, but that's what our cost is for our geometra. And so far, he's put in applications and permissions for the boiler, for the wastewater management, so for the septic tank system, and then for the renovations of the property. So that should explain what we've been facing there. So we've outlaid quite a lot of money, but we figured it was probably better to do it now than drip feed it further down the line. We know where we stand, we know what it's cost us, and we also know that moving forward we won't have mains drainage costs. The septic tank is large, it probably won't need to be emptied very regularly. The boiler is brand new, and as long as we keep it up to date, it's within warranty. Keep it serviced, it's within warranty. The Bombler, we're in a contract with them for 2 years at a pretty reasonable rate, and LPG, from what I understand, is cheaper than mains gas. We do have mains gas to the outside the house, but it's never been connected and we decided not to. And there we are, that's our costs so far. The most expensive thing we're finding here is cat food. Cat food's really, really expensive here. I don't know why, and he's worth it, much like a L'Oreal advert. So we'll pay whatever it is, but we are finding that some of the things that we're buying here are surprisingly a bit more expensive. But on the whole, life here, the cost of living here is significantly lower. We stopped into a coffee shop yesterday morning and we bought two café, 2 cornetto. The cornetto, so the croissants, the croissants were handmade. You had a choice of jam and dark or light chocolate or anything. They were made by this wonderful woman, and we paid €5.40 for that magical, lovely experience and great food and drink. And the cost of having that from a chain in the United Kingdom would be exorbitant by comparison, and it wouldn't be freshly homemade. So there's something to be said for cheaper food provision and cheaper cost of living and just better food as well. So bear that in mind. So that's it from us. That's costs so far. As we go further down the process, we'll explain what renovations we've done and what it's costing us. But there you go. That's where we are right now. Casa Fornelli. So join us on the next one. Thanks.
Darling, you fell in love with the famous man. See my pictures posted everywhere across the land. And if you run you still want me.